Hi everybody, and welcome back to my latest episode of Mrs. Mummypenny Talks. And today I have another guest for us to listen to. Now, I recognise I've been interviewing a lot of women. I'm not doing it on purpose, I promise. I just prefer talking to women. Yeah, I've said it. It's true. So today we've got Emma Maslin, who is a friend and a colleague. You can't really say colleague much when you're in the self-employed world, but Em is definitely a colleague of mine, and we do spa days and meet up in Norfolk, and we talk a lot about money. So Emma is the founder of The Money Whisperer. So thank you for coming onto my podcast.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to talk to you again, albeit in a different setting to when we last met by the beach in Norfolk.
Yeah, we were last time we met was in July in Blakeney. It's like a tidal estuary, isn't it, that comes in and out, and our kids were all like on your paddle boards and catching crabs and having a lovely time.
Lovely time.
Yeah. So tell us, Emma. So I have chatted to you a couple of times before in old guises of radio shows or podcasts, but I think this is the first time you've come on Mrs. Mummypenny Talks where it's all mine, under my banner.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
Yeah. So for people who maybe haven't heard of you before, tell us about what you do and how on earth you got to this point of being the Money Whisperer.
So I started my journey a little over 3 years ago when I started my blog, The Money Whisperer, as a hobby, really. Mm-hmm. I, very similar to you, have a background in accountancy, and I would find that lots of my mummy friends, while I was on maternity leave and throughout my time, would come and ask me questions about, things to do with their finances. And it was something that made me realise that so few people have the kind of grounding that I have from a combination of my background and my career choice. And so I wanted to just put something out there to help people understand the basics of better money management. So that's where the blog started. And it wasn't long before I realised that people would read what I had to say, and they'd check in, they'd say, that article on wills was amazing, brilliant, I've got to get that sorted, it's made me really think that that's what I need to do. And yet I'd check back in with them a few weeks, months later, and they still wouldn't have done it. And that's the bit that really, really fascinates me. So it's actually driven me on the journey to where I am now as a money coach, and more recently looking at sort of more around money therapy, because understanding what drives people's behaviours is what really, really interests me. We get the practical, and what you and I talk about is really interesting and really great to push out to people. But where I help people now is around what's stopping them taking action to make the changes that they know could have a material difference on their life. So I do a lot of work around behavioural side of money and the emotions that sit behind how we feel about money, because if you just say to anybody, what does money mean to you, some people will go, oh, don't ask, it makes me feel anxious, or it makes me feel uncomfortable to talk about it. Other people will say it's brilliant, it helps me to do all the things that I want to do, it's a positive thing. So there's the whole raft of emotions, and I love being able to explore that with people, and where they've got issues that are preventing them from making positive changes or doing things that are making them feel in alignment, so decisions that don't make them feel uncomfortable, we work to change that so that they can have a positive and a happy relationship with money.
Yeah, wow. And the really amazing thing about what you do is I feel like it's quite unique. I'm not sure there's anybody, there's people sort of messing around with it a little bit, but you've done it properly. So you've got the qualifications. Well, number one, you're an accountant to start off with. You have some life experience, another bonus. You've got kids, like you've been through a lot of the, life struggles and strains that you need a bit of experience of. But there's nobody else really doing it like that I know of, and you're absolutely right with money. So you come up with all these recommendations of how to do this and how to do that, but if you're not in the right mindset, to want to sort it out, and B, you might be coming up to a situation where you need to sort it out because debt's spiraling out of control, or it's impacting on relationships, or there's so many negative there's so many negative aspects of not being in control of your money, I think, that can really hurt your life. So
and they very much, we're not necessarily aware of where they are showing up for other people. You know, outwardly we might project that we have it all together, but inwardly, and actually that's really true, a lot of my clients are quite wealthy. You know, to work with somebody in a coaching relationship, you know, it is a financial commitment. So it's generally people that work with me who've got some money behind them. They have good jobs. I've got people in 6-figure jobs that are working with me, but yet they've got no money to show for it. So it's that control and that you know, those feelings that they're ashamed to put their hand up and say, I just haven't got my shit together, really. But outwardly they might be projecting that on social media. You know, it's the new cars, it's the holidays and things, but behind the scenes there's a lot going on. So I thought it was really interesting what you brought up. You know, there are a lot of people out there calling themselves money coaches, and it's not actually a regulated industry, so anyone can call themselves a money coach, but coaching and mentoring are actually really, really different. So when you're mentoring, you're showing somebody what to do. So if somebody has got a problem with budgeting, you know, they just don't know what they're doing and they keep failing in their attempts to do it, you can show them a method to budget, you can walk them through that, and you can let them go away with that and work through it. That's mentoring. Coaching is really about helping somebody explore through questioning and through guidance, explore their own solutions to the problems that they're coming at in life. So it's really a journey of hand-holding and helping somebody get that that self-development piece in a way that they might struggle to do on their own.
So do you do timeline therapy, right?
So this year, to aid in my work with my clients, I realized that it is really easy to sit and say, okay, well, you need to change your mindset. Okay,
if you're
no, and it makes perfect sense. Okay, if you're sitting there saying, I'm no good with money, instead of saying that to yourself, that little voice in your head, say, I'm great with money. But you know, there's only so far that goes. You have to be able to give a client transformation. You have to be able to have the right tools in place to be able to facilitate that transformation. So for me, that came with training in Neurolinguistic Programming, which is a psychotherapeutic approach to being able to use the power of language to change the patterns of thoughts in our brain to achieve the ultimate outcome. And part of that is timeline therapy, which I also trained in. So it's about with a lot of money stuff, it's all founded in our childhood. So we're sponges when we're little. We take on board everything that is in front of us, everything that we see, everything that we hear, everything that we experience, we just accept as true. Until we're about 7, we don't question anything. It's just it sits as a template in our brains. So actually timeline therapy is great for me because it enables me to use the power of our subconscious to go back and explore what the trigger event is for a lot of people that's causing the behavior that they have right now. And for so many people, it's very hard in talking therapy or talking coaching for them to find that. Because for me to say, you know, what did you experience when you were 4, 5, 6 around money? A lot of people can't really remember. You might remember your first job, you might remember getting pocket money, but actually there could be a trigger there. There might have been something said that you witnessed, maybe an argument with parents around a particular bill, or one parent spent something that the other parent didn't agree with, and that experience of seeing that conflict may have sat in your brain and then rolled forward, so that becomes your reference point as an adult when you find yourself in a similar situation, but you don't necessarily know it's there. So the tools I can use enable us to go and find that trigger, explore it in the rational kind of part of our brain by saying, okay, if you were a fly on the wall and you could witness this now as an adult, Is it true? Does it serve you to hang on to that belief and that way of thinking? And if not, you know, what can you learn from that so that you can move forward in a different direction? So it's a great way of helping people deal with a lot of the negative emotions. And it's not, you know, it can be used for everything, not just money.
I was going to say, I used it for weight. So I had hypnotherapy for weight loss, and we did timeline therapy. So you know, I'm a well-practiced person. I know it works. So I've had problems with my weight my whole life, and I managed to get it under control through hypnotherapy 5 years ago. And we did the timeline therapy, and we went back to an event that happened when I was 11 at school, where I was a normal 11-year-old girl. Like, I wasn't fat, I wasn't thin, I was just normal. But 2 boys in the playground, I won't name them, but they called me fat. And that single like scenario in my life is the timeline trigger point of, right, they've called me fat, so I must be fat. And then I spent my whole life until 38 emotionally eating and getting overweight as, you know, a way of reacting to every emotion. And it all, when you peel it all back, it all comes to that one situation. And we just sort of addressed that situation in the therapy, and was just like, they were just 2 idiot boys that didn't know what they were talking about, and they certainly didn't know the impact that would have on your life. And it's just rationalizing that situation in your sort of subconscious brain, isn't it? It's so
well, it's bringing it out of the subconscious into the conscious. So the conscious part of our brain is where we can apply rational thought, and we can look at something, we can learn. So when we bring that trigger and that experience out of our subconscious and look at it from a rational place, we can answer those questions like, well, they were young, they didn't understand what they were saying. Is it true? You know, all of these things. And as an adult, and rationally, you can just go, that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want to hold on to that, and I can release those feelings, and then you can move forward in a different way. So it's a really powerful tool. And actually, you bring up something really interesting, because I know that you are a fully committed emotional spender as well, right? And actually, a lot of people, I'm working with a new client at the moment who is an emotional and has been in therapy for eating disorders. So disorder being an unorderly way that our brain processes things, right? And actually, there's often correlations between emotional eating and spending, and it's never really about the thing. It's not about the food, it's not about the money, it's about understanding, well, what is the trigger that they're just the behaviors. So if you spend, that's a behavior. If you eat, undereat, overeat, whatever you do, binge on anything, that's just a behavior. Understanding what the trigger is that's driving that behavior, so the belief that causes the action, is what therapy is all about. It's about finding that, and then when you've dealt with that, the behavior is suddenly removed. So it's really fascinating to me, because there definitely are correlations with women, especially around eating and money. It's very abundant to me that link is there.
It really is. And God, I've spent so many years trying to like get it under control, but I feel like I'll admit it, I haven't got it under control. There are times of my life, particularly when I feel like I'm losing control, where the only way to get in control is to like spend some money, or I mean, I'm better with the spending of money. God, I'm getting very personal here. It's like a therapy session. But I know, like, I was feeling really awful yesterday, and what was my immediate reaction to go out and do? I just went to Tesco Express and I bought some rubbish food. I got some ice cream. So that's a double whammy of eating rubbish food, and I spent like 18 quid in the process.
And the word you use there is really telling. It's about control, because for so many people, being able to control what they spend and being able to control what they eat are the things that they can control. So when you're feeling out of control in an area, and that might be overwhelm, that might be stress, you know, under pressure of work or whatever, that lack of control forces you into a behavior where you can control something. So really that's a really good example of if you move everything back a bit, if you could get control over the thing that's causing you elevated levels of stress, then actually you could prevent the behavior down the track. So it's so fascinating. Like I'm just becoming more and more interested in it all, because it's so powerful, the transformations that you can give people. And in society now, you know, we've got people who, you know, we live in a society, we're very much consumers. You know, people couldn't wait to get out of lockdown to be able to go and do the things that they used to do, which involve spending money. I know that kind of 4 months ago we might have been sitting here saying, oh, it's great, I've realized that I don't need everything that I thought I did. There's so much rubbish. People revert back to behaviors, and we're already seeing, you know, people want to go out, they want to be doing things. So you know, we are creatures of habit, and we are consumers, but we live in a society where we're driven by social media now, and I'm scared for the younger people in our lives. You know, they're going to be growing up thinking they have to compete with what they see on social media from their friends. And like I say, you know, what we see on social media isn't necessarily a reflection of the truth, but it's what your reference point is, and it's what's going to drive you to want to, you know, stay within the crowd and not be different. And it worries me that we're going to get into a place where people are more and more in debt, and what that does to people's psyche, and how that affects them and then their children, because this is all, this whole piece is around what you see and what you experience when you're young leads through into your adult behaviors. So as adults, if we're modeling this kind of behavior, it can only impact our children. So yeah, the work that I'm doing, I really want to be, you know, taking more and more out, and I'm doing more corporate work around this as well to help people understand the psychology of money, because I want to have an impact in this area. There's loads of people doing the practical, which I love still. I love teaching people the practical, and you know, there's more and more of us doing that, which I think is fab. And that's why I see my place as moving more into this emotional piece, because I really want people to get that sorted, to enable them to be able to put all the practical guidance, which will help them be better with their money, grow their wealth, have that peace of mind down the track.
But it's almost like, I've had this discussion with a couple of people, you can push out as much you know, of the sort of middle section of fixing the money problems as you want, but until you actually hit stage 1 of the money psyche, and where the actual problems are derived from, you're never going to fix stage 2, which is the practical bit, and stage 3 is obviously that, oh, we're all fixed and we can work towards financial freedom, right? But you do have to start with stage 1, which is money mindset. And it's the only thing that worries me is it's like the privilege of it. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about privilege of having money. So I am, well, you and I, we are extremely privileged people, where I've had some therapy this year because I've needed it, because I've gone through a very traumatic divorce. But I've been able to afford that therapy, and it doesn't come cheaply, right? Like I pay like £90 a session for my therapy, and I actually feel like I might need to set it back up again, but that's a whole nother conversation. But it's amazing that we can afford to do that. But what on earth do you do if you're, I don't know, you're at your wit's end, you don't know what to do, you go to the doctors, and the doctors are like, well, yeah, you could have some counselling, some therapy, but the waiting list is 6 months long. What do people in those situations do? It's similar to the situation of you know, people, I suppose when you're in debt, there is a solution to when you're in debt, because you can go to wonderful charities like Step Change or Christians Against Poverty.
But they're still dealing with the practical. They're providing you with the debt management plan. They're not necessarily helping with what's going to prevent you doing that again in the future. And for a lot of people, just getting to that rock bottom and having somebody help them can be the motivation to say, right, enough, I'm not doing that again. But for a lot of people, it is a cycle. You know, they get into debt, they get out of debt, and they go back straight into it again. Or it might be that they have a period where they're okay, but then another trigger happens and they repeat the cycle again. So it's so important to have that. But you're quite right. You know, I think a lot of the help out there is very practical, and this side of things is lacking, which is why, you know, I'm trying to move my business more towards but increasing the amount of work that I do through corporates, because it isn't something that's necessarily acceptable. I had a mum contact me last night while I was watching a film about her adult son, and he's been to step change, and I'm not obviously sharing any names here, so this is confidential, but you know, she was contacting me because he wanted help, and I think that money's probably going to preclude them from working with me. But corporate entities have the funds behind them to provide this sort of support in terms of me going in and presenting to vast amounts of people. I think that corporates and employers actually have a duty to be helping their staff in this way, especially in this time post-COVID, because there is no one in this country, in the world, that hasn't been impacted in some way by what's happened. I mean, you might still be fortunate to have two jobs in the family, but you know, food prices have gone up. We're going to have issues. Taxes are going to go up. Everybody is going to be impacted in some way financially by this, and overlaying everybody at the moment is, well, what is going on with the economy? And that raises everybody's level of stress to some degree, because that level of uncertainty is not nice for anybody in terms of what it means for potential redundancies and all sorts of things. So, you know, I think that if we can encourage, and I would say to anybody listening to this, you know, if you've got an employer and you've got an HR department that you can contact, you know, ask them for financial wellbeing sessions. The cost to them is very minimal. The cost to you as an individual might preclude you from approaching somebody like me, but for your employer, you know, the cost benefit is absolutely huge, because some of the stats that are out there, they show that by the time it gets to the end of the month, so the last few days before payday, employee absences absolutely rocket. For some people, they can't afford to get to work. And it's very true. The stats show that. So, you know, if our employers can be educating their staff, getting them support around financial well-being and getting their shit together, there's a huge cost implication for them as well. You know, better attendance, happier staff, because money is the biggest stressor in our society. If it's causing you to argue with your partner, if it's causing you to worry about whether you've got enough food to feed your kids, they are going to be impacting you when you're at work as well. So if you can relieve some of that anxiety around money, it can only have a positive impact, which is, you know, why I'm pushing that way as well with what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I'm talking to 2,000 people this afternoon from a company about.
Yeah, we talked about it last week.
Financial well-being, and it's really positive that it's a huge company that they're taking a step to do it, and it's going to be a mixture of money mindset and practicalities, but it's just the natural thing that companies should do. Like I've seen a lot of results of corporate surveys in the past few months, mainly because a few of my friends have shared stuff with me, but employee satisfaction is down, just because of, as you say, the overall impact of COVID. But I actually think that certainly from my friends, which is, I'm just talking sort of 4 or 5 people here, but people are more stressed work-wise. Even though they're working from home, they're not having to do that commute, but they're feeling like their workload has actually got worse, because companies are under stress because sales are right down, profits are right down, shareholders are still, you know, banging on that they want their dividends. So it's all just rolling through to these people. People are worried about the fact that their job might not be there in a few months' time. Who knows what's going to happen, you know, once furlough stops? Like, that's when the shit really is going to hit the fan, right? whatever the government decide to do, we don't know. But I don't think they can afford to carry on paying all that money out, can they?
No.
Although they just seem to be printing money. So it's
No,
just...
I think it's something that, you know, we need to get the message out there. And I did start this business as a hobby. I've always been quite open about that. So for me, it wasn't ever about, you know, necessarily charging the end user for the information that I want to put out. That's always what I've been really passionate about. And now that I'm coaching, yes, I do work with people who pay me for my time and transformation, but I am very much about impact more than financial gain, and I think that working with corporates is the way that I can do that, to push this message out so that the end user still gets the benefit of all this stuff without any cost and like you say, these are the people that really need our support, but wouldn't necessarily be in a position to work one-on-one with a coach to help them with all this stuff. And it's everybody, you know, everybody has got some sort of money block. If you say, you know, what did you hear about money when you were growing up? Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy. You know, everybody's got some sort of story that is their little internal voice that they hear. So we've all got some sort of issue that needs dealing with, that is impacting some way our current lives. And I've done my own work on my money story and the scripts that I tell myself, because I want to be the best parent that I can be, and not transfer that down to my children as well. So,
oh gosh, tell me about so remember when we met up in July and you told me about that idea of writing a letter when you're starting a new relationship?
So
that's really, I love that.
We were talking about you know, divorce and moving on and things, weren't we? So I often have one person in the relationship come to me, mostly women are drawn to me, but I will say to them, are you in a relationship? Because it fascinates me that either they think that they're doing the right thing and that in some way they need to fix their partner, and typically that's because they might have really different money personalities. So I do a lot of personality profiling. At the two ends of the extreme, you've got the saver and the spender, but you've got lots of different personality mixes within the matrix. And I often encourage people to do this transformational work together, because again, if you're doing this work on your own and then taking it forward to a marriage, a partnership, but that person isn't in alignment with what you're doing, you could have had the best transformation doing the work with me, but then they're going to go and sabotage what you want to do because it doesn't fit with their own thinking and their own beliefs and how they view their world of money. So anyway, to come back to your question, what I was talking to you about was about how we can open up those lines of conversation, because for a lot of people, they say, oh gosh, no, you know, I haven't told them I'm even doing this, which I find really fascinating. Like, why is it that we can't, with our closest partners, say, oh, this is something I really want to work on, it's really important to me, I think it will have huge benefit if you and I can work on our relationship with money? But they don't. So one easy way to start having that conversation, it's not something that comes up easily. Hi darling, should we have a money chat tonight? You know, oh, do you want lasagna or a money chat? You know, it's not something that we do, even in comfortable relationships. Just the mention of money can raise that level of, oh, why do they want to talk to me about it? What's wrong? You know, this is going to be awkward. Even for people that have plenty, having that conversation about money can bring up barriers which you don't consciously know are there. So a really great way is to write a letter. Write a letter to each other about your history. What did you grow up seeing? So what's your earliest memory of money? How did you maybe make money when you were younger? What did your parents teach you about money? What did you experience around money? Around setting up a bank account, having pocket money, that type of thing. You know, somebody may have had pocket money, somebody may have not. That is a really good example of a way that people might then come together in a relationship as adults and treat how they want to give their children pocket money or not. If you didn't get it, You might think that your children should just be bought things as and when they need them. If you did get it, you may have a different instilled value around the importance of giving them some money to be responsible for themselves. So that's just a really simple example. So write this letter about, you know, just your story around money that takes you through until now, if you want to, but at least until your early adulthood. And then you can swap stories and you can read each other's. It takes away that need to talk about it.
Yeah.
It allows you fully the time to digest what the other person has to say. And then it just, you know, often you're going to have a laugh about some of these things. It might be, you know, now I'm putting myself on the spot to think of something, but you know, it could be,
what about when I stole money to buy My Little Pony stickers?
There you go.
That's my earliest money memory.
Yeah, and then so from that creates a conversation starter, which is, well, what would we do? How would you treat, if we had a child that did that, how would you react now as an adult? So it's just a nice way to, rather than sitting down and saying, should we do our budget? I'm feeling really uncomfortable. You need to earn more. You need to stop spending so much. You know, the conflict conversations, it's a great way to start realizing that money comes into life in all sorts of ways, shapes and forms, and talking about it should be normalized.
Yeah, totally. It's such a, it's like we're used to talking about it because it's our jobs, like it comes as second nature, but for so many people it's such a taboo subject. They're so uncomfortable talking about it, and if only we could just normalize it a bit more and be more honest and open. Like, you know, like with mental health, there is a movement. It is becoming something that's more socially acceptable to talk about, particularly as more, you know, like celebrities talk about it, and it is moving forward, but we're still stuck with money. Still, people will not talk about money. And it's such a shame, but we're doing our bit. We're changing the world bit by bit.
We are, and during lockdown, I set up a community just for women because I think that the way that women and men talk about money is very different. I think we acknowledge a bit more that there is an emotional side to money. I think it would be very hard for a man in the same way to put his hand up and say, yes, I have these feelings about money. And even we see it in the media and the work that we do. You know, the way that the media talks to men is very much about making money and being the breadwinner, and there's still that stereotype that the man is the one who is the wealthy one and the woman is the one that manages the pennies and probably overspends and needs to be thrifty. They're very gender stereotyped in the media at large. So I wanted to create something that enabled women to be women and put their hand up and say, this is the stuff that I'm struggling with. And there's so much commonality. We have the food discussion, all of that. So I've set up a monthly membership, which enables people to get access to me at a much more cost-effective way than one-to-one.
It's not an expensive monthly membership, is it? So it's called the Money Lounge.
It's called the Money Lounge, yeah.
And will you say how much it is a month?
Yeah, it's currently £15 a month. So now it's so much cheaper than working.
I just have to say 15, because I know a lot about monthly membership stuff. I don't have one. But £15 a month is a very, very reasonable monthly membership thing for the amount of value you get from it, because normally they're like, what, 50 quid? I've seen some at 100 quid a month.
Well, this is, for me, it's my way of essentially giving back. And I refuse to do it for free because I want people to take action, and when people have money in the game, it makes them take action. For me, I'm doing so much other stuff that pays me, that pays me good money. This is my way of helping a lot of people in a cost-effective way, and having the impact that I want to make around the practical side. So it's more focused around the practical. We've got monthly experts that come in and talk about various topics, and I do a lot of training in there. We do have a weekly Wealthy Mind discussion, which is around the emotional piece. But by and large, it's my way of being able to help people around navigating the practical stuff so that I can focus one-on-one and in group programs and in corporate presentations around the psychology piece, which is where I'm doing my good work.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the sort of process flow and the product flow that is it's almost developed like naturally, hasn't it? I just get the impression with you that obviously there's thought and planning in what you do, but there are just these things that evolve and they naturally just happen. Like the Money Lounge, it was a consequence of feelings and thoughts over lockdown, wasn't it? And it
Yeah.
worked.
It was, and people come to me with exactly the same issues every time, okay? And I often have people on calls that are saying, right, can you help me with my budget? Can you help me do X, Y, and Z? And whilst I can do that, and it doesn't need to be tailored advice, because a lot of the practical stuff doesn't need to be individualized, you know, making a budget, understanding how to come up with ways to diversify money coming into your life that's specific to your talents, all that sort of stuff. I can coach on a group basis, and the individual stuff is the emotional piece. So now I've got a route to say to people, right, you don't need my one-on-one coaching, you don't need, for the practical side of things, to work on and pay me one-on-one. You can go into the Money Lounge and be supported not just by me, but by a whole bunch of other women that are on the same journey as you. So, and then if they want the emotional piece, it's much more tailored to what they need. And actually I have a lot of people that work with me one-on-one on that and are still in the Money Lounge, which is great.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. So while we're talking about women and money, then let's touch on some of the things that aggravate us hugely about women and money. So I suppose the first thing that I want to touch on is women and investing.
Yeah.
Because I still, on a regular daily basis, I have women contacting me about debt often, but I also have a lot of women contacting me about, I just don't understand investing, I don't know where to start, it feels too risky, I'm too scared of it. Like that conversation we have on a daily basis, right? And it's frustrating because like I'm used to it. I've been doing it since I was 22. Not like investing in stocks and shares. I put it in a stocks and shares ISA. It's a nice balanced fund and I protect myself. But I have tried stocks and shares and it went wrong. But yeah, like how do we deal with this issue of women and their fear of investing and long-term financial planning?
Well, the biggest thing I say to that objection around risk, oh, it's too risky, is what about inflation? You know, the risk of putting your money into investing is there, but it can be a calculated risk because there are lots of different ways to invest that align with your particular risk profile. You don't have to select hugely risky investments and funds. You can de-risk by the choice of what you invest in. But there is a very known risk to us that is absolutely affecting you right now, which is inflation. So if your money is sitting in a bank, and actually the inflation rate went right down yesterday, so this argument isn't holding as true as it has done previously, but still, if you've got money in a bank account, in an inflationary environment, that money is making you poorer and poorer and poorer every single day. So what are your two choices? Stick with a known risk that's making you poorer every day, or opt for something where you know you've got a higher level of risk, but the potential for higher returns is there as well. And past performance is never an indicator of future performance, but by and large, the stock market historically has outperformed having money in a bank account. So for me, the only way to really grow your wealth is to get educating yourself about how to generate wealth, which is spend less than you earn and invest the difference. My biggest mantra, and that's what we talk about in the Money Lounge, that is the overarching mantra: reducing your spending, increasing what you earn, and investing the difference.
Yeah, but only after you've got your emergency fund in place.
Yeah, and you've paid off all your consumer debt.
And you've paid
Two big caveats, yeah.
Two big caveats. And with emergency fund, I say this every day, so I'll repeat it on here. It should be at least 3 months expenses, but what I say is 6 months, because I needed to raise my emergency fund in January and 3 months money was not enough. So I've now got 6 months. It's so painful that I've got 6 months worth of money sat there in, you know, like I put it in Marcus, which you can't open those accounts anymore, but it's paying me 1% interest. I know it's rubbish, but it means I can get it in an emergency. And you don't know if an emergency is like I've got to replace bloody 4 tires on my car next week, which is 400 quid. Or it could be an emergency where, like in January, I had a massive tax bill that I just wasn't expecting because of complexities that I won't go into. But I needed to pay 10 grand tax bill.
Yeah.
And where do you get 10 grand from?
Yeah.
So,
We've got to have it. And I think that COVID has, and certainly in my experience of the conversations that I'm having, the past experiences of the last few months have made people reassess that maybe even higher. I think with this overarching unknown about what's going to happen in the economy and what it means for jobs and all sorts of things over the next year or so, or potentially even longer, a lot of people are increasing what they've got or what they're aiming to have in a fully funded emergency fund beyond what typically we would normally have told people to aim for, being that 3 to 6 months. I think people are pushing that even higher now.
And also, it's really important for women, me talking from a divorced woman point of view, to have money in your own name.
Yeah.
Can't rely, I say this all the time as well, 42% of marriages end in divorce. That's the latest sort of statistic. So you can't rely on everything sitting in your husband's name, you know, like the big pension pot, the investments, you know, all that stuff for your financial future. I know that in a divorce, they are meant to, you know, cut the assets down the middle, but it doesn't always happen like that. It's safer to make sure you have money equally split between two names, because you know what I mean.
100%. I've made the mistake myself. Not a mistake, you know, I'm happily married for now. Well, I am happily married, but we have experienced a time where I wasn't working and I stopped paying into my pension. I've talked about this a lot, and that's left me in a position where I'm hugely disadvantaged compared to my husband's pot, which he's been growing through promotions and through consistent work throughout his career. So I am now in a place where focusing on my pension is really, really important for me. I think some stats, one of my Money Lounge members put some stats in yesterday about divorced women. So women and men, there's obviously a pension gap anyway, which is about, a woman can expect to retire on a pension that's about a third of the size of a man's. That's the average figures. But for divorced women, it's hugely reduced even compared to the average. Which is really, really shocking. And I think one of the things to take away for your audience today is knowing that you can get a pension sharing order. So I don't think many people, they're thinking, if they're getting divorced, especially if they've got children, they might be thinking about the house. It's probably most people's biggest thinking in terms of how they split their assets. Who's going to get the house? Are my children going to be okay? Am I going to get monthly support to support me continuing to live and support the children? And they forget about this huge pot of money that is an asset. Most people's biggest assets outside their house is their pension. And if your partner has a huge pension sitting there, you have a right to access a sharing order, which means that when that is available in the future, you know, some of it does come to you, and it's something that needs a specialist to arrange, because there's all sorts of, you know, calculations around its value now, its value in the future, and all of that. And I don't profess to be an expert about that, but just to highlight to women that if you're in this situation, it's really important that you get some advice on that. Because it can be material. If you're in a position where you don't have a pension at all, or your pension is tiny compared to that of your husband, especially if you've been a stay-at-home mum and your job has been to build the family unit while they've been working, which, you know, we do live in a different kind of society now, two working parent families, but there are still a lot of people who do give up work even for a short period of time to care for small children. It's really, really important that you get your fair share, because together you have built your family. Just because it's now, you know, disintegrated, you need to get your fair share of what your contribution was during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of power to women. Just make sure you look after not just the now, it's look after the future as well. And I think that's a huge overarching thing that I think everybody needs to be thinking about. I really feel like people are just worrying about now, today, next week. They're not thinking enough about next month, next year, or 10, 20 years down the line. And absolutely, there's a time for living for the now, but there's also an element of preparing for the future as well. It's all about balance, right?
It's all about balance. That's exactly right. And as women, I've got some interesting stats. I was talking to them yesterday. As women now, we can expect to live to 82 on average.
Right.
25% of us will live until the age of 96, and 1 in 10 of us will reach 100. So
No.
you absolutely need to be thinking about the future. I think when we're young, it's really easy to live in the here and now.
Yeah.
You did it, I did it. As we get a bit more mature, we start to realise the value of thinking ahead a bit. But still, when I talk to people about, well, what are your short-term plans? What are your medium-term? What are your long? It's really easy to get that 1 to 3 year stuff, holidays, big purchases like cars, the kitchen extension, all of this sort of stuff. People are it's very difficult to get in the mindset of thinking beyond kind of 7 years. Unless you might have university fees in there for children, maybe. But again, that's the nurturer kind of coming out of the woman, you know, thinking about somebody other than themselves. But you've got to prioritize yourself, put that oxygen mask on you first before you deal with other people, and realize that, you know, you can be number one. And it's not wrong to put yourself first, because if you are financially secure and stable, you are in the best position to help other people. It's that classic oxygen mask thing.
Yeah.
So thinking about the future becomes more important as you get closer and closer to it. But unless you want to be working until you're 100, ladies, you need to be thinking about what you're doing to support yourself. And especially if you've got these visions of pina coladas on cruises, you need to have the money to feed those pina coladas. So let's get the pina colada fund going.
Love it. I prefer a mojito. So tell everybody, let's go through where people can find you.
Okay, so my website is themoneywhisperer.co.uk, and I'm on Instagram at moneywhisperer_. So you can find me there.
And your Facebook membership group is the Money Lounge.
It's the Money Lounge, yeah. There's a whole big page about it on my website, themoneywhisperer.co.uk/join. Gives you information in terms of what's in there, what you can expect on a monthly basis, what sort of training and coaching sessions we have.
Yeah, and I will say that whenever I get people that approach me who want some kind of real emotional money therapy understanding, obviously I do not have any qualifications to do that, so I just refer them straight to you, particularly when it's there's things we get that we can't do ourselves, isn't it? So pass it on to the best person who can do it. So thank you ever so much for joining me on the podcast. Everybody go follow Emma on Instagram. We like Instagram the best, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Better conversation and prettier pictures. And thank you for joining me. That was a really great conversation.
You're very welcome. I could talk about this all day, but you know, very good to have these conversations. Like I say, I think it's really important to debunk the myths, get women talking about this, and making money less of a taboo.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye. Don't go though.